Hello again. Miss you guys. Hopefully everything is going well. We are continuing learning target 2 notes in this video. And so this is the same learning target that you wrote for the last video. So using mathematical representation to explain the flow of energy within an ecosystem. So in this video, we're going to be talking a lot about the cycles. The cycle we are going to focus on the most is going to be the carbon cycle. Okay. All right, so the cycles of matter. We're gonna have a bunch of different cycles that we talk about. The first one is the water cycle, and you guys probably covered this a lot, whether it was in earth science or life science back in 7th grade. And so this is just the hydrologic cycle is the circular pathway of water on Earth. Okay, so this is anything from condensation, evaporation, precipitation. Okay, you can look at this picture. Basically just how water cycles through our Earth from the ground to the lakes and oceans up back into the air. Okay, so the first one is the water cycle. So how the water moves throughout the Earth. Okay, then we have the oxygen cycle, and so this is just how oxygen moves. Involved is photosynthesis and cellular respiration, which is going to be our next unit. And so people, okay, we're going to take in our oxygen, right? That's how we breathe. We're going to breathe out carbon dioxide. The plants are going to take in carbon dioxide. They go through photosynthesis, and they're going to release oxygen. So it's a big circle between the organisms that breathe, need that oxygen, and then organisms that go through photosynthesis and take in carbon dioxide. Okay, carbon cycle. So carbon is the building block of life. In order to be alive, you need carbon in you. And so the carbon cycle moves carbon from the environment to living organisms such as us, and then back again. And you are actually going to do a project on the carbon cycle. So again, this is going to be the one we focus on. So this picture will be a very important picture as you're going through this, and I believe it's in your skeleton notes, so you can always refer back. So a couple of big things in the carbon cycle that we'll talk about is our fossil fuels. Okay, we've got our photosynthesis that's going to play a big role. Obviously, decomposition of organisms, putting that carbon back into the ground. And then we have stuff like combustion, we have stuff like fire, deforestation, stuff that plays a role in our carbon cycle. Okay, so again, carbon is the building block of life, and some sources of carbon include CO2 gas in the atmosphere. So up in the air, we have a bunch of CO2 that's playing a role. A lot of plants are going to be taking in that CO2 to perform photosynthesis. Dead organic matter in the soil. So this is decomposition, from our decomposers. So as an organism dies, the reason why it just doesn't stay there, like a dead deer on the road, why doesn't it just stay, a dead deer, is because we have these decomposers decomposing that body material back into these elements and putting them back into the earth. Then we have our fossil fuels, so underground deposits of oil, natural gas, coal, and this is all from decayed organic matter. And they have been pressurized, and so whether soil, dirt, and stuff has kind of compacted their body. There's been some heat as well, and so all these organic matters is now converted into these oils, natural gas, and coal. And a lot of times we think of like dinosaurs being fossil fuels, which they certainly can be, but other dead organisms can as well. Carbon sinks are just going to be large amounts of carbon that are stored for long periods of time. And so our biggest sinks on Earth are going to be our forests, because they have a ton of trees that are taking in that carbon. And I mean, the bark, the leaves, everything is going to be made up of that carbon. Okay, so it's like a big sink of carbon. Okay, and then we have bicarbonate dissolved in water as well. And so these, the highlighted ones, are going to be the important ones that you know and remember. Okay, and then we also have bicarbonate rocks, so anything with limestone is going to hold in carbon as well. As you know, if you've looked into climate change or anything like that, a big contributor to that is going to be our carbon emissions. And so running our cars, running factories and stuff like that, as you can see, the total amount of carbon released at the end of 2000 is very, very high compared to what it was in the 1900s. Okay, so as we move on, we get more advanced in our technology, our carbon emissions are going up. Okay, so just a reminder, carbon sinks, where is it stored? So our atmosphere is a sink of carbon, land like our forests, okay, our sediment, so like our rocks, our limestones, and then the ocean is going to contain a lot of carbon as well. Okay, so just 4 of the main carbon sinks in our environment. Okay, another great picture of the carbon cycle. This should be in your notes as well. Kind of just tells you where the most carbon is in these numbers. So as you can see, our forests have tons and tons of carbon. So does our ocean, stuff like that. Okay, one big effect, the greenhouse effect. So we have this layer in our atmosphere. And so the reason why our carbon emissions are going up so much is because this atmosphere captures that carbon. So as it's released from the earth, it's just going to bounce, boom, right back down. Okay. That heat, okay, along with CO2 is going to warm the earth. Hey, now we have our nitrogen cycle. And so this is going to do, has to do a lot with bacteria. And so gaseous nitrogen, so nitrogen in gas form, is going to be fixed into the nitrogen that we can take in through a process called nitrogen fixation, which seems pretty obvious, right? It's in the name. Nitrogen moves through the food web and returns to the soil during decomposition. Okay, so again, when dead animals are out there, they're going to be decomposed. Their nitrogen is going to be put back into the soil, back into our plants, back into our earth. Hey, this is a great picture of the nitrogen cycle in action. Okay, so our nitrogen is in plants. We're eating those plants. As those animals die, okay, they're going to be broken down. And then bacteria, again, this is our key here. So bacteria is going to play a key role in our nitrogen cycle. Then we have our phosphorus cycle. So this is just released by weathering of rocks. Okay, so rocks is going to be the important thing to remember here. This is going to leach into our groundwater from the soil. Okay, it's going to be locked in those rocks. And then mining and agriculture is going to actually add it into the environment. So the more we mine, the more we farm. Okay, we're putting that phosphorus back into the environment. Again, this is going to move through our food web, returns to the soil during decomposition. So as you can see, decomposition is big in all of these cycles because we have to return those minerals to the earth somehow. And we do that through decomposition of dead organisms. Okay, another picture of our phosphorus. So again, the important thing are these rocks. Okay, so they're going to be stored and released in these rocks mainly.